Entry 25. I have met Pucci. As to keep Enya the hag or the Darby brothers from realizing, we met outside the mansion, at a separate hideout. Unfortunately, I did not gain very favorable answers on the questions I wanted to ask him. The bow and arrow awoke a stand in him called White Snake. It is by far the most unique stand of all the ones I know. A miraculous ability that can remove the memories and the stand of its target. I can't justify calling it suited to battle, but its ability to manipulate souls is not weak, even when compared to the Darby brothers. A fantastically useful stand. Yes, memories and stands, they have always been divided, and so I, Dio, never thought about it in this way, but those two components together create what we could call a complete soul. In that case, Pucci's stand may be even more suited to going to heaven than the Darby brothers. Their stands require the winning of a game before a soul can be extracted. I questioned him. I asked him this: what would happen if you placed the memories and stand of one person into another human? I was asking if it was generally possible for one human to possess two memories and two stands. I, Dio, needed two bodies to obtain my two stands, but this is a much easier path. His response was, "That is indeed possible, Dio." Of course, as the master of the stand, Pucci is able to read the memories he extracts, but if he inserts the extracted memories into someone else, that someone will also be able to read those memories. And if he inserts the extracted stand into someone else, that someone will gain the powers of that stand. Of course, the handling will not function just as well as it did for the original body, but the principle holds. If a stand is inserted using White Snake's ability, then whether it be an ordinary person or a stand user, they will be able to use the stand that has been inserted into them. That was good news for me. It was good because the answers I received from the question I asked cautiously were about the best I could have hoped for. If one is able to possess several memories and stands, they should then also be able to possess several souls. My heart leapt. Only Pucci continued. "But Dio," he said, "even that has a limit. You can only insert one disc at a time. Should you force more, the most you could do is 5, though I don't know why you're asking about it." 5 discs. 5 people's worth. That's not enough. Unless I can pack 36 souls into one body, the door to heaven will remain closed. As quickly as my heart grew, that Pucci's stand was perfect for my objective, as if made for it specifically, that hope faded. And disappointment grew in its place. But I did gain something. As a matter of fact, the reason I originally wanted to meet with Pucci was satisfied. He may qualify. He may be the one to effect my plan to attain heaven. Yes, he may have the qualifications to walk the path to heaven. I like humans who make themselves grow. You are a king among kings, Dio. Where are you going? I want to go with you. I love you as I love God. I remember Pucci giving me such words. He will undoubtedly become a noble clergyman, but perhaps Pucci is wrong. He will not go where I am going. Rather, I will accompany him when he goes to heaven. Entry 26. I, Dio, have been careless. I, Dio, should have known better. I realized it after Pucci returned to America. It may be impossible to cram many souls, that is the combination of memories and stands, into one human body, but I, Dio, am not a human. I rejected my humanity 100 years ago. I donned the stone mask and stopped being human. The bone needles that sprang from that mask pushed on my brain and gave me a body incomparable to that of a human. So, No doubt, I would be all right no matter how many souls and memories Whitesnake inserted into me. At the very least, I should endure much more than a human. If only I had thought of this yesterday, I could have tested it. Or perhaps it would be too dangerous. I still haven't fully adapted to my body. There is too much of Jonathan in it, too much human. If I am to perform such an experiment, it must be later. Many young women's bodies must I drink the blood from, or perhaps that of a member of the Joestar family. Only then will I be free of Jonathan's humanity. And after that, should I perform the experiment. If I still had the stone mask, I could create new vampires and use them as test subjects, but it seems that no more stone masks exist. If I search the whole world, I may find one, but I do not have a clue where to start. Zombies would not work. While they may be immortal and ageless as vampires are, at the moment someone becomes a zombie, they become like a corpse, lacking any soul. That would make the whole experiment pointless. No, perhaps because they would be corpses without souls, doing such an experiment would have empirical value. Since I have awoken from my century-long sleep, it has been quite some time without making any zombies. Perhaps I will make one or two for a test. Regardless, I must contact Pucci again. I have known him for several years now, but he may be my yet unfound friend. Entry 27. I have learned that Silver Chariot and Dark Blue Moon have been defeated by their intended victims. What's more, Silver Chariot's master, Jean-Pierre Polnareff, a stand user whom I controlled by a flesh bud, has had the bud removed by the Kujo boy. He has joined their cause. Like Noriaki Kakyoin, I have lost another valuable stand user to my enemy. With a flesh bud removed, it is to be expected that the victim of the bud would lose his loyalty to me, Dio. But why? For what possible reason would they then join the Joestar's group? Especially Polnareff. If all he wants is to avenge his little sister, doing so would be far easier as my subordinate than by joining them. Perhaps he bears a grudge for being manipulated. Is he perhaps driven by emotion, caused by my trampling on his character and his human rights? If that is the case, that is all the more reason to refrain from using the flesh buds in the future. I cannot do anything about the ones I have already used. They were an ability originally developed for the sake of controlling people, so I never even thought about cancelling their effect. As such, I have no ability to do so. Regardless, I cannot allow my number of subordinates to shrink any further. I cannot lose any more of these stand users whom I gathered for the purpose of attaining heaven. I may not be fully adapted to my body yet, but now that it has come to this, I can no longer put this off. I have made the decision to personally go eradicate the Joestars. Or rather, I had. But I must now regrettably report that due to Enya the Hag's impertinence, that is no longer an option.
You intend to go yourself just because they are a bit more formidable than we anticipated, Lord Dio. Ridiculous. You must not carry out such an absurd act.
She's always saying such things. And Enya the Hag has now told me that she has sent 7 stand users to assassinate the Joestar group. I cannot reveal my goal to that old woman, and so I could not directly condemn her for her rashness. Even if I told her, I expect she would react similarly, calling it something I must not do. All the same, it is a dilemma. The stand users Enya sent were not controlled by flesh buds. Even if they are defeated, they will not likely betray me. And if they are indeed able to get rid of the Joestar group, well, that is favorable as well. In fact, it is the most favorable result. I have no desire for the thrill of doing the deed myself. So then, right now, nothing of inconvenience has happened. Excluding the possibility that Enya is starting to read my true intentions, nothing of any inconvenience is happening. Entry 28. I contacted Pucci immediately after he arrived in America. Because of Enya, it doesn't seem like I will be able to go anywhere, so I've asked him to come again as soon as it is convenient. The world has gotten considerably smaller than it was 100 years ago, but a journey from America to Egypt is still not an easy journey for a human. But, without a moment or hint of displeasure in his tone nor demeanor, he agreed. Hearing his response, I felt I was right. He is the one. In fact, it seems odd that I never thought of it before. Perhaps I've become more careful towards friendship since I called Jonathan my friend 100 years ago. But it is best to keep a cool head. Being careful is just the right thing to do. I truly think so. I told him as much, that there is no need to rush. I don't want to interfere with Pucci's duty, his faith. I want him to be deeply religious, as long as he doesn't become foolish like my mother. Even so, he has earned enough of my trust, my goodwill, my friendship, that I have made my mind to gift him one of my bones. As and when it becomes necessary, it will grant him great power. Entry 29. What is the difference between humans and animals? Both have souls. Both have intelligence and varying degrees of technology. What is something only humans have, and furthermore, the thing that makes a human human? Things like biological classification are actually just things scholars decide on their own. They don't have all that much meaning. They make their knowing faces and categorize things however they like. When a creature comes along that doesn't fit in any one category, they tear their hair out, but soon enough, they make a new category that simply includes that new creature and destroy the old category. So in the end, no matter how they are categorized, all categories collapse. Perhaps it is not a distinction between humans and animals, because all creatures are the same thing. That is what I talked about on the phone yesterday. I just happened to, without any real reason at all, bring up that subject. Enrico Pucci, in response, said this: I think the difference that makes a human is the desire to go to heaven, Dio. All humans think and hope, even pray for it. But animals do not have that concept. Humans design their lives in order to go to heaven. That is what makes humans remarkable, Dio. Let me first say I had not touched upon the subject of heaven with him yet. He spoke those words to me without any prompting, as if they were automatic. Maybe I'm forcing the issue by reading too much into it, but still, if it's a hint of fate, I must make an approach. Gravity. If there is an attractive force at work between people, just what kind of force pulls me to Enrico Pucci? Perhaps there is a strong, fated connection between Enrico Pucci and myself, like the one I share with the Joestars. I am certain that he will become my guide to heaven. The next time I meet him, I will share several of my subordinate stands with him, just to be sure. But maybe I can simply call him the right person for the right job. Joseph Joestar and Jotaro Kujo, as well as Avdol, Kakyoin, and Polnareff, are all simply not to be taken lightly. I do not consider them a threat, but thrice have I lost to an opponent I also thought as weak, the man, Jonathan Joestar. The first time I was simply hit. The second time I was burned and impaled. The third time my body was destroyed by Hamon, but the fourth time was a draw, only due to the injury of one fighter. I admit as much. The tally stands such that I have not won victory against the Joestar bloodline. Nothing but straight losses against Jonathan Joestar. Therefore, I must prepare for the worst case scenario. Entry 30. This may have no direct connection with the method for going to heaven, but I think there is a need to record some details about the stone mask around this point. I don't know who will read this. As of now, I think there is a high probability that it is Enrico Pucci, and he has no previous knowledge of this, so this story will be necessary to share before it becomes too difficult to understand. The stone mask was the focus of Jonathan Joestar's research. He planned to use his thesis to establish himself in the field of archaeology. I snuck many looks at his research documents, but I did not learn any detailed information on the origins of that mask. Everything I know for sure, I will write here. It is an ancient artifact found among the people of the sun, the Aztecs, a kingdom in the high plains of central Mexico from the 12th to 16th centuries. However, while it was recovered from them, it seems it was not something they created. After all, their civilization wiped out before they ever fully learnt how to handle the mask. And then, the mask was all that was left. This is purely hearsay, but it seems that the ones who originally unearthed the stone mask was Jonathan Joestar's master, William A. Zeppeli, and his adventuring party. Whether it's Zeppeli's party or the treasure hunters that rescued me from the bottom of the sea, those that seek treasure have a strong tendency to find quite incredible things. Perhaps one could call that gravity as well. So rather than saying they found those things, I should say they were drawn to them. I actually heard that Zeppeli's party, due to the power of the mask and their own stupidity, were entirely wiped out with the exception of Zeppeli himself. And when that happened, the stone mask was lost at sea. And by some twist of fate, instead of sinking to the bottom of the sea, it must have drifted on some sort of channel, or drudged up by some fishermen. Once again, it reappeared in the annals of history, and this time without such a long pause. Jonathan Joestar's mother was on a trip to London and bought it from an art dealer. Jonathan Joestar's mother. I was told she died in an accident on her way home from that trip. And that is when my father came to their rescue. I have never met the woman, of course, but I heard that when the accident occurred, she was embracing Jonathan as if to protect him. So I think I can infer what her personality was like. She was surely noble and proud. Probably a mother that was like a saint. Probably a mother like my own. Well, she did also find that eerie mask interesting enough to purchase it. So she was not just an ordinary woman. If she had not lost her life in that accident, were she still alive when I was taken into the Joestar family and she had become my adoptive mother, my life may have become something very different. It's curious to think about such things. Since she was, surely, similar to my mother, I wonder how she would have raised such a bad child as I was. I think, though, I would have killed her. Just like George Joestar. Speaking of him, George Joestar hung that stone mask on his wall for quite some time as a memento of his wife, an alternative to a photograph. Though when Jonathan said he was going to use it for research and made it his own, George Joestar didn't seem very reproachful about it, so he couldn't have been all that attached. Not that I think he didn't have an attachment to the memories of his beloved wife. Rather, when Jonathan claimed the mask as his, the son just inherited it from the father. Jonathan Joestar, the inheritor. And then I, Dio, the taker, took that stone mask from him. And the world became so much the more interesting, to an outrageous degree. As if guided by gravity, that stone mask buried in Mexico made its way to me. Looking at the past in that way, I have a hunch that the Joestar mother, dying in the carriage accident, was also something caused by the stone mask. It's quite an odd thing to ponder. I think this is a good place to stop. I will continue writing about this tomorrow.